26 of By a Fire. I'm John, this is Devin, and we are By a Fire.
Well into the autumn, 2 weeks away from Halloween, and the costumes are out in Portland. Certainly, we've got
Yep,
quite.
yep. Well, I'm right here, and it's been certainly interesting. A
Yeah,
lot of
what's been your on the ground experience? I mean,
I
I
mean,
know it's
it's
all.
some small groups out there. I mean, they kind of started wearing the inflatable animal costumes, and we had a popular streamer that was out here. He comes and performs music and stuff, and he got detained. Not sure what why they detained him, but they shot him up with pepper balls for no reason. Yeah, he wasn't doing anything. I mean, he was out
Yeah,
there with like a speaker on, and he
they
was
also
just
detained a clarinet
like, it's like,
player
I
from
think
the
he's called
marching
Roddy
band.
Road Steamer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's awesome. I love Roddy, man. Like he's just a good dude, man. He goes and sings songs, and I mean, agree or disagree, and but he's going and just putting out an absurdist show, and he that's how he describes it. And I mean, it's free speech, right? Like,
Hmm.
why is he being detained? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know I know there was a moment where he went up to like a federal vehicle leaving, and he got pretty close to it, but I mean,
Hmm.
as far as I know, he didn't do
Yeah.
anything illegal.
Well, tomorrow is going to be the next big protest. It's going to be the next No Kings protest. So there's going to be quite a crowd tomorrow. Uh, yeah, some of the other things that are happening with regards to ICE is that in Chicago, a judge has been kind of frustrated with the kind of level of non-compliance and has been ordering uh, ICE agents to wear body cameras. Yeah, the specific news, this is AP News. Judge has said she's going to require immigration officers in the Chicago area to wear body cameras, and she has summoned senior officials. Judge Sarah Ellis. Um, yeah, I mean, amongst the news is in Chicago, the ICE has arrested a police officer in the Chicago suburb, accusing him of being in the U.S. illegally. So that's one of the more notable. And we've got estimates that at this point, rough ICE has been responsible for detaining roughly 170 U.S. citizens that are currently in ICE custody that have yet to be released. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, I mean, we do know that there have been a number of situations, and as I've been watching what's been going on, particularly in Chicago, um, my impression is that you have ICE going out and they've got some kind of a database of people who they're targeting for arrests, people that they have identified as, people that maybe have a driver's license but don't have papers. So
Hmm.
stuff like that. And they're going and probably have some cameras on their vehicles that scan the license plates of cars as they're driving around, and they, like cops do. Cops have these
Hmm.
cameras on their cars, and as they're driving around, it's just automatically recognizing all the license plates of cars. And if one of those vehicles is stolen or associated to someone who has a warrant or different things like that, then they can initiate a stop or some other enforcement action. And then ICE is something like that. I think maybe, I don't know.
Hmm.
It's what their methods are exactly is kind of left unclear. Probably because if they said what they were, then people would know what to do to avoid it, possibly. But I'm guessing, here. But I think they're going out, maybe driving
Well,
through parking lots at
I think
stores and
what we're
stuff. And
discussing is the immigration OS offered by Palantir,
mm,
a contract that ICE is paying Palantir $30 million for the platform.
gotcha.
Yeah, it basically is something that pulls together vast amounts of data, detects pattern, and flags individual for certain criteria. So I think
Right.
what we're seeing with these arrests is the implementation of Palantir's program.
Right. So they're cruising around. They're looking for either they're going on a particular targeted arrest to somewhere someone's known to live at, or they're going around just generally patrolling, scanning license plates and such. And I think they also have some kind of app on their phone they can scan people's faces that they come up on in public. And I mean, it sounds like the Supreme Court, under the Kavanaugh shadow docket ruling, has opened the door for them to even just going to come up on anybody, really, that they claim to have a reason to suspect, right? Like if someone's running away, oh, you're running away? Well, that means we can come up on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're running away and you're brown, well, Kavanaugh says they can use race as a factor in a sort of host of factors that they can consider when stopping someone. And then from there, it seems like they're, asking for people's IDs and different things when there's no reasonable suspicion that the person has actually done anything wrong other than perhaps being brown and appearing to run away, which, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
how can you prove whether or not someone actually did run away? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and a part of this is that, since June 1st, since the Transportation Department implemented a new English language proficiency rule, there have been 6,000 truckers that have been pulled off the road and cited for English language deficiency. So basically, the Department of Transportation, with this rule, has kind of created a new pretext for state troopers and immigrations. So basically, if you're driving a commercial truck and your English is not sufficient, they impound you, they impound the truck, and that's kind of creating a serious problem in our logistics delivery at this point.
This is
Yeah.
in every, wait, what state is that?
Well,
California?
I'm reporting this article is from the Detroit News, article by Rachel Hatzipanagos of the Washington Post from yesterday, October 16th,
Mm-hmm.
and basically, yes, what they cite is 6,000 truckers have been pulled off of the road for English language proficiency violations.
But I mean, where was this law? This new law or policy?
This is a federal law. This is the
Oh, it's
federal
federal.
Department of. Yeah.
But like road traffic is a don't you have to be traveling like from state to state or something for the feds to even have jurisdiction over, like I thought all like road laws and stuff like that was all just state.
Well, this applies to any of the federal highways. So, it's basically something that Highway Patrol
But
would be
federal,
enforcing.
oh, I see. So it's like a federal law, but the state individual highway patrols and stuff like that basically can use it.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what's the do you know if there's like a rationale that was given? Like I mean, I mean, being a driver, a truck. I mean, I know there was that there was a case recently where there was some undocumented immigrant. I don't think it was. I can't remember. I think it was someone from like somewhere in Asia or Eastern Europe or something, where they had the semi and they tried to do like a U-turn with the semi,
Yes, it's
and
cited in
then
the
some people
article
were killed. A family
referring
was
to
killed and stuff.
a collision which happened in Florida where Harjinder Singh attempted to make an illegal U-turn,
Right.
which resulted in a crash that killed 3 people.
But what
Uh,
did that, I mean, again, it seems like one of those incidents where did that person's lack of English ability really impact their likelihood to have committed that offense?
Right. Well, basically, what Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, is saying is that because the road signs of our country are in English,
Right.
it is imperative that people driving on the roads be proficient in English.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just another one of the ways in which the screws are kind of getting tightened across our nation. Um, But
I mean, I think there's an argument to be made there to an extent. Like, I feel like, but if they're using it as a way to pull people over and go, oh, you have an accent,
mm,
we're taking you in or something, like
right.
if somebody can't even speak English at all, and this is something for like commercial truck drivers, not just like everyone on the road, like I think that might be like a little understandable, but I'm not trying to defend the policy, but yeah, it's definitely one of those things we ought to be on the lookout for. It's like, okay, here's one of these policies. Are they going to be enforcing it in a way that's actually just part of a dragnet?
Mm,
Because it seems like what we're talking about with this immigration OS and different things, it's basically this creation of this big dragnet, and they're going around using kind of automated tools like trawling, just
mm,
going cruising around trying to catch things in their net as they're passing. Oh, here's a license plate to someone who is undocumented or something. Now, if they're targeting people specifically that uh, have criminal backgrounds or a past conviction or things like that, and not just anyone who's here illegally, that'd be one thing. But it's kind of a little bit unclear, just what they're doing. And also, do we want to live in a country where there are these just roving patrols of cars going around doing that? And of course, their defense to it is, well, we let all these millions of people in, and now to undo that, is going to take this kind of inaction, which, I mean,
yeah.
what do you say to that? Like, what's your attitude on what should we do if not that? Should we have an amnesty program for people that are here? Like, what should we be doing?
Well, one of the things I consistently argue is that the backlog in the process of legal immigration applications for green cards and for permanent legal resident status, citizenship status, and for naturalization is so large and so extensive and so onerous. That I think a certain amount of an amnesty program comparable to Reagan's 1986 amnesty should be considered for people who have been long-term legal residents of the United States. Sort of the unsung thing in the discussions about illegal immigration is the fact that we do not have a smooth or straightforward process for applications for legal migration. And I think as long as there is that deficiency in terms of, people waiting 15 years or more to be naturalized, as long as there's this huge background, this huge delay in our legal immigration system, I think that is a grounds for leniency. And the one thing I'd say is that, I mean, if you want serious enforcement of illegal immigration, you also need to have a serious, well funded, and professional legal migration pathway. And that is
Right.
something that we currently do not have. So,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, on the one hand, the administration wants to push a nation of Christian values. It's clear that there's a lot of Christian nationalism behind what we're seeing. And I find it to be quite a conflict between that
well,
and,
one of the first Christian values is to welcome the stranger, shelter the unhoused.
yeah, well, not just
Remember that
Christianity. I mean, you find that same exact uh,
Jesus
religious
Christ was
moral,
born as an illegal immigrant, as a
right?
political refugee.
And you find that same exact moral in not just Christianity, but Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism. It's there in all of them. And the Jews don't especially need um, even they have plenty of historical reasons to understand that, if you're immigrant in a country and they start coming around trying to collect them all together and put them in detention facilities, what that kind of looks like a little bit. I mean,
Uh,
1930s, anyone?
mhm.
Isn't that basically what Germany was doing? Yeah. I mean, and furthermore, what is said in the Bible, Jesus, you don't know the hour of my coming, implies he could be here now. He could be one of those immigrants if you believe in the second coming. So, what if you're actually arresting Jesus Christ and kicking him out of the country?
Well, at the very least, in Chicago, they're arresting, Presbyterian ministers. Um,
There was
okay.
that Catholic priest that got pepper sprayed.
Well, not Catholic,
Oh, he wasn't
Presbyterian.
Catholic. Oh, he was, well, okay.
Presbyterian. So in some ways, that's
Okay.
even more so because that's a high church Protestant denomination that's getting pepper sprayed in the streets of Chicago by ICE agents. But another thing to worry about, of course, is the Supreme Court, which on Wednesday.
Actually, he got shot in the head with a pepper ball. Sorry. Not, it wasn't spray per se. It was,
Okay, shot in the head with a
yeah,
pepper
which
ball.
I don't know if you've ever been shot in the head with like a paintball gun. It
It can
hurts.
break your nose.
It hurts a lot.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
not something that I feel like, just, oh, you're standing too close to this line that we painted on the concrete. So we're going to shoot you with pepper. Like, what? Like, what are we doing?
Hmm.
Like, I mean, I respect that whatever job you have and you're working out of some building and there's a crowd like blocking how to get into your building and in and out of it and stuff. Like, you know, yeah, like that's annoying. And there's definitely ways we can deal with that, but like I just don't know that I think that shooting pepper balls at people that really aren't doing anything, and we had that judge in Chicago, wasn't it in Chicago, the judge the other day that was like, yeah, you guys can't be doing this to these protesters.
Hmm. Yes, that judge that I mentioned previously, and you also have ICE now acting to block ambulances, which are attempting to take people away from the scene, injured people with broken collarbones.
Wait, what? Block
Yeah.
ambulances? ICE is blocking ambulances now?
This is Coin News reporting from 20 hours ago. Ambulance crew blocked from leaving ICE facility by ICE officers. So this is just from yesterday that Koin News captured footage of ICE agents basically getting in front of and confronting an ambulance that had been dispatched to pick up a 32-year-old white man with a broken collarbone. At 9:34, the EMT driving the ambulance told dispatch that they were not being allowed to leave. The EMT reiterated this again at 9:40, and basically then 9:42 finally made it onto the road, code 1 to Emmanuel. So basically, you have kind of a 15-minute period of time where ICE is not allowing this ambulance to get going in a sort of a 15-minute confrontation
So,
between.
yeah, so basically what my understanding is that there's like a procedure. So I think what happened was is that the ambulance went in, and so you have to understand that the ICE building has a driveway that goes like back in there. And there's like a gate that closes in front of it. And then this driveway comes out to the street, and there's like a blue line painted across the front of this driveway. And then what the protesters have been doing, because their whole thing is this is an ICE detention facility, and they're basically trying to block ICE from getting in and out of the detention facility so they can't bring people in to detain them, right? That's kind of why they're basically standing in front of that driveway. That's what they've been doing. And so what the feds do is anytime they need to have a vehicle come in or out of that facility, they march a whole huge line of federal agents, with all sorts of masks and guns and everything. And they march them all, or I don't know if they're guns or pepper ball guns or whatever they have, but they march them all out and then they kind of mushroom out into the street, like in a formation, to kind of push the protesters that are in a line in front of that driveway, to push them all back out away from the front of the driveway so it's no longer blocked, and then they create kind of a protective bubble around the street in front of the driveway so that a vehicle can fully exit the ice facility, and then they basically close back up around the front of the driveway, and then they slowly back into it, and now the vehicle can get out. And so they do that whether it's an ICE vehicle leaving the facility or whether it is an ambulance leaving the facility, and if there's a sufficient number of protesters out front. And so, in part, I don't know that seems like it should have been necessary if an ambulance was leaving, because you would think the protesters wouldn't try to block the ambulance from leaving anyways. But I'm guessing that's probably what happened. I don't think they're sitting there going, well, now this ambulance is on the street, so we're just going to block the street so it can't get out. But they're kind of just following this like whole procedure and this is, yeah. I wasn't there for that particular incident, but I'm speculating that's probably what's going on.
Have you been down to the protest site in person? Have you been down to the waterfront?
Yeah, I've been down there a couple of
Okay.
times. It's very much like if you go during the day,
Mm-hmm.
there's typically not a whole lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
So people are typically going down there at night is
Mm-hmm.
when it gets crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you like to go to sleep at night, like that's not conducive to you being there when there's a bunch of stuff happening.
So, what would you say about kind of the claims that Portland is a war zone right now?
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, obviously, yeah, I can't I can't speak to that. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand how we can have a situation where, you know, anyone in the government can sit up there and just say things that are completely false like that. Like broad statements, I mean, I can get that like sometimes government officials might misconstrue things or spin it a certain way or something, but like saying that like Portland is on fire and burning down and saying that it's a war zone and all this stuff. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm. But that's kind of the coverage that we're getting at Fox and OAN. So
I
well,
mean, why do you think that is?
well, it's basically they're looking for a justification for their crackdowns. They're looking for violence as as John Lennon once said. They know how to deal with violence. What they do not know how to handle is satire and peaceful resistance.
See, I
And
don't agree.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily think that it's actually because that's based on this assumption that, well, they're fascists and they're gonna come up with some reason to like justify them being fascist and violent and all this. But perhaps I take a more cynical, pragmatic look at this and simply say that no, it's about votes. It's like why was Portland brought up and mentioned during the presidential debates? It's because they know that their base is sitting there going, wow, the crazy far left in Portland, well, look at all the, the riots and all this stuff that's going on. And, if they can portray the far left in a particular light, right, it's going to reinforce the alienation of the swing voters from the left. And that's the main thing they need to do. And especially when Trump's numbers are falling, they're really concerned about that because they don't want to lose the House or the Senate. And so they need to once again sort of demonize the left, make the left look like the crazy violent ones, to try to get all the voters that are just your kind of average, everyday, regular blue collar workers who just want, to be able to go to work and not have, concerns over safety or different things, that they're appealing to that vote.
Yeah.
And I think they need to portray Portland. They know that people aren't coming to Portland to see for themselves. They know that people are just going to see what they see on the news.
Well,
And
that's another thing that's fueling the shutdown right now is that one of the allegations is that the Speaker, Mike Johnson, is not reconvening Congress because he doesn't want to seat the newly elected Adelita Grijalva of Arizona, which would shift it to the point where, after she gets seated, the Republicans are going to be down to a 2-seat majority in Congress. That's exactly how thin their margin is that
yeah.
if the Republicans lose 2 more Congress people from Congress, then they lose control of Congress.
And that segues quite nicely to the Voting Rights Act situation. So let's talk about that. The
Yes.
Voting Rights Act was put into place during the Civil Rights Movement, is often considered to be like a crowning jewel of the Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s. And one of the things that it requires is that when redistricting in a state, right, that if you, let's say, have 20% black people in your state and you have 10 seats in Congress, then you should have two voting districts that are majority black, so that there's a chance that the black voters at least have a statistical likelihood that if their votes are actually counting. But and so it bans gerrymandering the districts in such a way that there's not even one single district, for example, that would have a majority of black voters in it, with the assumption that, if you're a minority and you're voting, but you don't have a majority in a district, it's very hard to get representation.
Yeah. And basically, it is the state of Louisiana that's bringing this challenge to there's an appeal to the map of Louisiana, which would currently, provide, Louisiana is 30% black, and it would provide 2 of the 6 congressional districts for the state of Louisiana would be African American. That's what's being challenged, and there's a lot of signals that the Supreme Court is going to be basically trying to get rid of race-based redistricting, which is a fundamental provision of the Voting Rights Act. So this is something that is estimated could result in Democrats losing as much as 19 congressional seats across the United States if basically
Yep.
southern states are able to eliminate majority minority congressional districts.
And is there any molecule in your body that thinks that this particular conservative Supreme Court will protect the Civil Rights Act?
I think it's very highly unlikely with everything else that we've seen. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I mean,
you
they,
know, all,
they they didn't care about women's rights. Why would they care about black people's rights?
yeah. No, the Roberts Court has been one of the most malign and hostile courts towards voting rights or towards the consideration of minority representation in terms of their jurisprudence and their handling of prior elections laws. And so that also kind of further implements the necessity of something that's going to be coming up is Proposition 50, which is California's redistricting.
Hmm.
California is proposing a special temporary redistricting to
Yep.
counter Texas's redistricting. And that's going to be approved by the voters, or is going to be up
Put to
for
the voters.
consideration
Yeah.
on November 4th.
Do you think there's a chance that that won't pass?
I think there's a chance. There's been a lot of spending on the campaign ads against it, but I'd say it's a chance, and not, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a strong chance. I'd say the betting odds, I had to give 2 to 1 on Prop 50 passing.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah. it feels like if it's just a state referendum, it's just a count of the whole vote of the whole state, and it's not by precinct or district or weighted in any ways. It's going to be pretty hard to stop that.
Hmm.
There's also a push, apparently, to end vote by mail. Now,
Yes.
we have vote by mail here in Oregon, and I've often thought, wow, this is like the way it should be everywhere because it's really nice. You get your ballot in the mail,
Hmm.
it comes with a security envelope. It's basically, there's like a anonymized system where it's kind of, uh, you can go online and check to see if your ballot was received and counted.
Yeah.
You don't actually have to vote by mail if you want to go to a polling place and vote in person.
Hmm.
You can absolutely do that.
Yeah.
There's nothing to say that you have to vote by mail, but it is really convenient because you don't have to take a bunch of time out of your day and go stand in a line in the rain and the cold or whatever.
Yeah.
You
It
know, you
allows Oregon voters to vote at their convenience. And
right.
Oregon was, in fact, the first state to implement a vote by mail system in the aughts under Bill Bradbury was the Secretary of
Yeah.
State at the time, and
Right. And you have to sign your envelope on the outside,
Mhm.
and there's somebody that looks at your signature and they compare it to like what you have on file, and
Yeah.
could somebody theoretically copy your signature and do this stuff and stuff that
Yeah, but
capture
it's
look
very
like it's,
difficult.
and then you would know that you never got your ballot, so you could always just call in, be like, hey, I never got my ballot, and then what they do is they just invalidate the one that was sent out
Yeah.
that you didn't get, so that one cannot now be counted. So it's actually a really really nice system,
Yeah.
and I just
And
don't understand, what the opposition to this is.
well, it's something that boosts voter turnout, and that's something that Republicans don't really like or appreciate because that tends to have an effect that's maybe more progressive and for Democrats, or at least that's the way that it's come to be perceived.
Yeah, I
Uh,
would tend to agree with that. I mean, I think if you look at states like Atlanta or somewhere, when what happened in the COVID years, in 2020, of course, is that a lot of state election offices that don't have vote by mail but do have discretionary ability in certain situations to change the voting rules administratively, uh, kind of did like an emergency vote by mail because of the pandemic.
mhm.
And then that allowed a lot more people, and especially in the cities where you have these sort of bottlenecks that, there's a lot more people per polling station in a lot of precincts in highly populated areas like cities, which tend to be Democrat. And then you get a lot of people that don't go and vote because they have to work that day and can't go stand in line for 13 hours or whatever.
Yeah, and
Whereas,
I
like, if
mean what
people
I
that live
consider
out in the country and
especially
vote red, just
odious
go and vote for 5 minutes at their local library or whatever.
is that in Florida and Georgia, it's actually a crime to give out water to people who are waiting in vote lines. That's
Yeah, the
considered
whole thing
illegal
is set up to
electioneering.
funnel people to these really uncomfortable long experiences to have to vote. If you can make voting as slow and painful and annoying as possible to people that don't have a lot of money and probably have to work all day and probably can't get off work until late, and then they'll do stuff like they'll have it, well, the station's closed, it's midnight, now if you didn't get to vote by now, you're screwed, but pretty
Mhm.
much. And they've even had to have situations like that adjudicated, and they know that people aren't going to fight it in court usually because they're just, I mean, you don't have, if you're poor and you don't have time, like, how are you
Mhm.
going to fight for like the fact that you didn't get to vote? And what I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's just insane that we're now talking about taking away a system that really, I mean, and that's why the Trump campaign fought so hard in all the states that did that to sue the states and say, you can't do this. And this was the
Mhm.
major reason why Trump called that election fixed and rigged, because he knew that by letting people actually vote, that he would lose.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, it's only by restricting the vote to just this subset of voters that that you're going to win if typically for Republicans. I mean, that's just
Yeah, and
in most
for similar
states.
reasons, Republicans have generally been opposed to motor voter or kind of flexible voter registration, which
Yeah.
allows people with mobile homes and cars, you can use your car registration. So if you're living in your car, that still gives you a residence for the purpose of being a voter. And Republicans have been opposed to that, because essentially they don't want universal suffrage. They would prefer a system that is more like pre-Jacksonian America, where only significant property holders were allowed to vote. That's one thing that does need to be credited to Andrew Jackson is that he basically implemented rules that created a much broader universal suffrage that had previously existed at the outset of the Republic. Um, yeah, then let's maybe move a little bit to international news. There's been more strikes against boats near Venezuela,
Hmm.
but perhaps more significantly is the resignation of the Admiral Halsey, who was the admiral in charge of Southcom, Southern Command.
Yeah.
Uh, his resignation, only a year into his post of a 34-year career veteran Navy admiral, is worrisome, as is the deployment of B 52 bombers to stationing points that are near Venezuela. And so it raises the question of how close are we to something that might be called Operation Just Cause 2. Operation Just Cause being the invasion of
Operation
Panama in 1989.
Operation prequel to Avatar.
Yeah, well,
Venezuela, that whistle mean Bush.
Operation prequel to Cyberpunk 2077, because
Right.
in the Cyberpunk timeline, the Central American Wars are one of the things that leads to the downfall and the collapse of the United States government.
Well, I think in one of our earliest episodes, you may recall um, the the Golden Circle.
Knights of the Golden Circle,
Right. Let's
yes.
go back to Knights of the Golden Circle. So let me share my screen once again here. So refresh us, Devin. What was the Knights of the Golden Circle?
In the 1850s, after the Mexican American War and the failure of the All of Mexico movement, which was a movement in the South for the United States to annex the entirety of Mexico, the Knights of the Golden Circle were formed as an organization that was dedicated to supporting and spreading slavery across a region that they called the Golden Circle, which would be known as the Caribbean or the Spanish Main. This organization funded and supported Narciso Lopez's attempted takeover of Cuba in 1851, and they were also supporters and backers of William Walker's efforts, which William Walker was temporarily the dictator of Nicaragua from 1854 to 1856, until he attempted to invade Honduras and bit off more than he could chew and was overthrown. And the Knights of the Golden Circle were also instrumental in initiating the American Civil War. It was Knights of the Golden Circle agents, for example, who were responsible for arresting and detaining Governor Sam Houston in Texas when he attempted to maintain Texas's loyalty to the United States. Similarly, Knights of the Golden Circle were instrumental in seizing military armories across the South, which allowed the Confederacy to arm as rapidly as it did.
And what does Project 2025 have to do with the Knights of the Golden Circle?
Well, that's why don't you go into that? I mean, I provided a bit more of the historical context
Well, I'm
for
asking
who.
you because I don't know, but like I feel like when we talked about it before, there were some concerns that some of the roots of Project 2025 and some of the things that are going on that might be behind some of these chess moves that we see this administration doing might kind of be inspired by, or kind of a revival, if you will, of some of these types of ideas of American dominance in the whole region. For example, the renaming of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
Yes.
Um, and so, obviously, Venezuela,
Mhm.
right
Right.
here on this map, it's not one of the green ones, right? But
Well, Project 2025 recommends focusing the most
we
on
had Trump
China,
talking about
Iran,
Panama, like
Venezuela,
how the
Russia.
United States wants to like own the Panama Canal or something
Right.
earlier on.
Basically, you had significant. There was a proposal for the Chinese government was buying up real estate in Panama with the possible interest of kind of creating a new, wider, larger canal. Right now, the Panama Canal is one of the primary bottlenecks in terms of shipping sizes. One of
Right.
the ratings in maritime shipping is known as Panamax, and Panamax is basically the maximum size that is able to pass through the Panama Canal. And so there has been talk of creating a newer, larger, wider Panama Canal, or possibly a Nicaragua Canal. Um, that has been something that is posed, but yeah,
And well,
Project
we
20.
have 22 hours ago the AP reporting that the Panamanian president Jose Raul Molina said yesterday that, or well, no, today actually, Thursday. It says Thursday that someone. No, that was yesterday. Gosh darn it, I'm crazy. That someone at the U.S. Embassy has been threatening to cancel the visas of Panamanian officials as the Trump administration pressures Panama to limit its ties to China.
Mhm.
And U.S. Ambassador Kevin Marino Cabrera said in a statement that a visa is a privilege, not a right. And so it does seem like it kind of, I don't know exactly how to interpret this, but you might think that as U.S. China tensions uh, are rising, that obviously the Panama Canal is incredibly important to China for
Mhm.
global trade reasons. So, hmm,
Well, it's also kind of a part of a pattern of, as we're talking about Knights of the Golden Circle, uh, conservatives regard, in the 1970s, Jimmy Carter returned the Panama Canal to Panama. Prior to that, the Panama Canal was considered the property, was owned and run by the United States government, and we had a military deployment down in Panama. In fact, Panama owns its existence as an independent nation largely to U.S. intervention. It was U.S. intervention in the Roosevelt presidency that led to Panama gaining its independence from Colombia. Um, so basically, Theodore Roosevelt, we had a military intervention that allowed Panama to break away from Colombia. Uh, and
so here's
so,
here's a question. So on this map here of South America, we can see what is today Venezuela is this country here, but also this little
yeah, that's the Maracaibo
right.
area.
But you can see that the proposed golden circle would actually just have this piece. Was that a separate country from Venezuela back in those
Well,
days?
no, but it does represent some very fascinating points of colonial history. Actually, point to the area that's near Trinidad, point to the area that's the other part of here of Venezuela.
Here?
No, 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 no. Keep going to the there. That area is the Dare, which borders along with Guyana, the Essequibo region, is one of the regions where there was so the Darien scheme, which was a fascinating scheme, was an effort to establish a Scottish colony. Yes, it's one of the things that led to the modern United Kingdom is that Scotland bankrupted itself in the process of trying to establish colonies. The one we're most familiar with is Nova Scotia
Right.
in Scotland, but they were also trying to set up Central
You mean
American and South
Canada?
American colonies, which bankrupted the Scottish government, which led to the Act of Union in 1707, which created the United Kingdom. Uh, so,
Interesting. Is there
and
still a Scottish like? Are there because like in Texas we have places like New Braunfels and things that are like old German colonies? Are there like little pockets of Venezuela that's like all Scottish people being like, ah, I can't
well,
get me bagpipes down here repaired.
I mean, the one thing that I know about is that there's the in Argentina, there are the Welsh colonies. So there are still Welsh settlers and Welsh-speaking communities in Argentina to this day. I'm not able to find anything about surviving Darien Scots in Nicaragua, Panama,
I
or
have been hearing
Venezuela.
about places in Scotland that have become oases for refugees of Venezuela. That's
Yeah.
definitely a thing.
Yeah. No, the history of some of the I mean, I consider this, there was also Nova Sverige, or an interesting historical fact about John Sutter, the man responsible for the California Gold Rush, is that he originally emigrated to California. He was seeking a scheme to create New Helvetia, which would have been imagine if Northern California was the Switzerland, the Swiss colony.
Mm.
Uh, Heck, even the Lithuanians briefly attempted to have an island colony in the Caribbean.
So here's the thing I would like to hear from you as a historian, as you being a historian of American history and everything. So people are worried about there being a war with Venezuela. Like
Mm.
are people seriously thinking that that the United States would actually invade Venezuela?
Well, it's something that wouldn't be without precedent if you look at the history of U.S. military intervention in the Caribbean. It would be something of a larger scale than has ever been attempted. The closest thing would be Roosevelt's intervention in the 1901 Colombian Civil War. Uh, I guess you could also say, you have Woodrow Wilson's intervention in the Mexican Civil War. In 1917 with the occupation of Veracruz and the expeditions against Pancho Villa. However, that wasn't necessarily a complete overthrow and regime change. That was more that we took over the border cities of Mexico and we sent out a military expedition to chase down and destroy the military forces of one Mexican general in particular, Pancho Villa. Um, so, yeah, a complete regime change of Venezuela would be uh, kind of unprecedented in scale, but there was Operation Power Pack, which was the overthrow of the Dominican government. You have the U.S. military occupation of Haiti. You have the U.S. military invasions of Nicaragua. Yeah, regime change wars, these Banana Republic wars, go all the way back to the 19th century in the United States, though they've usually been applied against smaller Central American and Caribbean countries. It's been Haiti, Dominican Republic, Nicaragua. These are the countries that have usually been targets. It's not usually been. Venezuela would be a slightly bigger target in that regards as a nation of 30 million people.
Well, it's not 30 million people now. I mean, they've had it would have been if they had of not had their collapse, but I mean, they've had like I don't know,
Well,
millions of people have fled Venezuela. There's
let's
probably 30
see
million
here.
Venezuelans globally, but I don't think that
No, no,
they've
no. The population's estimates is 30.5 million Venezuelans.
I'm what I'm seeing says 28.4
Okay.
in the country.
Mm. Hmm.
I think there might be a total citizenry globally of 30,
Yeah,
but
I'm looking at the statistics I'm using are the CIA World Fact Book
right.
from 2021.
But like a
So,
lot of those millions of people that fled, there to other South American countries and Central American countries and all the way to the United States are, of course, Venezuelans. So,
mhm.
I mean, I think if I'm the Trump administration and I'm like, well, we're trying to get all these people out of here, we got to deport them, but deporting them back to Venezuela is basically inhumane because it's
Well,
it's
and Venezuela is refusing to accept deportees.
right,
That's one of the current issues.
right, and so you could see there being, from that perspective, a motivation for at least for like a regime change type of deal down there. Because if their country was being run by someone who wasn't rejecting people being sent back and who could hopefully get their economy back on its feet, maybe people would want to go back to their original. I mean, I'm not saying we should. I'm not saying that I'm arguing in favor of what the Trump administration is actually doing, but I'm trying to think about like, okay, if you're the Trump administration and this is what you're trying to do, like what is the motivation why you would be targeting Venezuela for a potential conflict?
Mhm.
And of course, other people will say, well, it's about the oil,
Yes,
but
largest oil producer in South
there
America.
can be multiple
Hmm.
layers of the motivations potentially, I would think.
Hmm.
But yeah, do you think this is going to happen? I mean, is it looking like, we're going to,
It's hard to say. I mean, we're definitely going for this whole policy where we're treating the Caribbean Sea as a American lake with our impunity to kill. We've killed 25 people so far from Venezuela, from Trinidad, from Colombia in terms of these boat strikes.
mm,
Um, but it's definitely one that bears attention, and it's currently the biggest war cloud that is on the horizon, so to speak. Yeah.
well, let's hope it doesn't go to a full scale war. Obviously, I mean, Venezuela doesn't have the population of Iraq, nor the military that Iraq had, but
But it is a lot of jungle.
it is a lot of jungle and it's a lot, it's still 25 million to 30 million people in there.
Hmm.
And, war, I think we don't, I don't feel like we have a good history uh, as a country of invading anywhere that has a jungle or is in Central or South America, do we?
Well, I mean, you define good. Do you mean successful military campaigns? I mean,
Sure.
I mean, we were able to pacify the Philippines after killing 2 million people and 8 years of war. You could argue that the occupations of Haiti and Nicaragua, from a military tactical point, were successful, but I mean, Haiti is still in a state of anarchy right now. Doctors Without Borders has just pulled out, and Nicaragua to this day continues to be under a dictatorship, the Ortega dictatorship. So, in terms of did U.S. intervention in these countries make them more stable, prosperous, democratic countries? Pretty hard to say. Uh, and I think that is another question: is that If we go about breaking the Maduro regime, no doubt that the Maduro regime is an obnoxious, tyrannical regime, but is Venezuela in a state of anarchy? Is that going to be any better for
Right.
you know, controlling the flow of drugs, controlling crime, controlling illegal immigration and refugees from
Right.
Venezuela? If we change it from being a bad dictatorship to a civil war, is that really going to be an improvement? Uh,
Well,
there's the
clearly the
question.
strategy has often been to put in another dictator, just one that is friends with the CIA
Mm,
or whatever.
yeah,
You know, so
yeah.
that's kind of what I feel like we've seen in the past in some cases, but yeah, I don't know, man. Uh, Definitely a lot going on. Feels like that things could be at a bit of a boiling point, but also you have to give some props at least to the current administration for what appears to be a peaceful sort of resolution to the Israel Hamas conflict. Of course, the night is young
Mm.
and it's unclear. I mean, there was, oh, they didn't return back the such and such 20 bodies of the hostages. I don't know what the latest news on that is, but they were
They're
talking about,
basically saying that they've returned all of the bodies that they have access to. At least that is what Hamas is currently claiming.
yeah, they're like, if
Uh,
you want the other bodies, here's the craters you can check for DNA, right?
yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, so, for the moment, of course, there are continuing threats being made you know, um, to Hamas. Trump is saying if Hamas doesn't stop killing Gazans, we will have no choice but to go in and kill them, as the Times of Israel is reporting. So, and of course, Saudi Arabia and the UAE are warning that the Gaza plan is already in danger of falling apart. Uh, as long as Hamas retains its weapons, we will not continue with the process. Um, they're basically saying that Hamas is evading its obligations. So, yeah, there is kind of the question of this transition away from Hamas rule. Right now, what has been going on is that there have been dozens of people killed in fighting in Gaza. This has been between Hamas and kind of either organized gangs or certain clans or families.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like Hamas doesn't operate. It's not like it's some top-down thing where there's like some dude that can say, "All right, everybody, give your guns to the Israelis. We're done. We're done here, and we're all, not Hamas is
Or,
disbanding."
well,
Like
not
it's a bunch of
anymore. That's kind
people.
of what happens when you decapitate the leadership of an organization, is that
Yeah,
it becomes a lot harder to get that organization. So, killing all those people in Qatar, it might have felt good for the Israelis and it might have been warranted considering their involvement in the October attacks. But when you decapitate the leadership of an organization, suddenly it becomes a lot harder to get the organization to move in lockstep.
yeah, and if it was ever really a full, like it's like people say with Antifa, well, it's not really an organization
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, and it's like, well, I don't, I mean, I have no real knowledge about how anything like that is organized or not, but I do know that when you have something like a resistance to like Israel or something, you're gonna recruit a lot of people into this that have very strong feelings about why they're doing it and that become extremely committed to this particular course of action. And then as soon as you say, well, we're not doing that anymore,
Mm-hmm.
uh, so there might be some subsets of that group that go, well, we never voted that one. Like we're still going to do it because we don't, what's there left for us now, So I don't know. I don't know what's happening, but it does feel like, how many splinter groups doing things that goes against this agreement would it take for the whole agreement to then be off? Because
Hmm.
you know, Israel's just like, look, like if we're still going to have terrorist attacks or there's still going to be this stuff going on, like it just renews why we're doing this in the first place, kind of thing.
Yeah. Hamas has released all of the living hostages that it still had, but the issue is now about the bodies of the dead hostages, and Hamas is basically saying, well, you bomb the Gaza Strip to rubble. We're not necessarily going to have all those bodies. If you want to find that hostage, we think they're buried under that hospital or whatever it is that you destroyed. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, it looks like we're at time.
Hmm.
So thank you if you watched. And I'm John. This is Devin. We've been By a Fire, and we'll be back next week.
Hmm.
Have a good one.